This is not just a tech story. This is digital sovereignty in action. Right now, Beijing is ordering its state-owned enterprises to rip out and replace American and Israeli cybersecurity software. We're talking about the digital locks and keys protecting China's most critical infrastructure. Some call this a necessary defense against foreign espionage. Others warn it's a dangerous step toward a fragmented, less secure global internet. Who's right? This is a 720-second deep dive into a decision that could reshape global tech for decades. To understand why this is explosive, you need the backstory. The directive, first reported by Reuters, targets giants like US-based Palo Alto Networks and Israel's Checkpoint software. It's part of a broader, years-long Chinese campaign called Delete A, Replace B, aiming to purge foreign technology from sensitive sectors. The timeline is critical. This order comes amidst escalating US-China tech tensions, Washington's bans on Huawei, TikTok, and Chinese electric vehicles, and Beijing's own previous moves against Micron chips and US consulting firms. The key players? On one side, the Cyberspace Administration of China and the State-Owned Asset Supervision and Administration Commission, the powerful bodies issuing the mandate. On the other, the multinational cybersecurity firms facing a multi-billion-dollar market lockout. And caught in the middle, thousands of Chinese companies who must now execute a technically complex and risky overhaul. The central tension is stark. Is this legitimate national security, or is it digital protectionism that will ultimately make China and the world less safe? Let's break down both sides. Supporters of Beijing's move argue this is a long overdue and rational act of digital self-defense. Proponents point to the Edward Snowden revelations a decade ago, which detailed how US intelligence agencies allegedly compromised global tech networks. Their strongest argument? You cannot let a potential adversary control the very systems designed to protect your secrets. Cybersecurity software has deep, privileged access to a network's core. It's like giving a foreign company the blueprints to your bank vault and the master keys. Officials and state media frame this as achieving cyber sovereignty. The logic is clear. In an era of hybrid warfare, reliance on foreign security tools is a critical vulnerability. Advocates cite the US government's own bans on Chinese tech like Huawei and Hikvision as precedent, asking, if America can do it for its security, why can't China? They argue this will turbocharge China's domestic tech sector, forcing innovation and creating national champions in cybersecurity, much like it did with high-speed rail and telecommunications. Furthermore, supporters highlight the alleged risks from Israeli software, a nuanced point often missed. They point to Israel's deep intelligence sharing partnership with the US under frameworks like the 1957 agreement, suggesting software from a close US ally carries similar risks. The mandate, they say, is not about isolation but about control, ensuring that in a crisis, China's critical systems are not dependent on vendors from potentially hostile nations. It's a logical, if drastic, step in a world where digital and physical security are now inseparable. But wait, there's another side to this story. Critics, however, see it very differently. Opponents counter that this move is less about security and more about control, and it could seriously backfire. Their first major argument, cybersecurity thrives on global collaboration. Threats are borderless. Hackers in one country target victims globally. By walling off its ecosystem, China risks cutting itself off from the international threat intelligence and rapid response protocols that make modern cybersecurity effective. A virus discovered in Europe can be patched globally in hours. In a siloed system, that lag could be catastrophic. Skeptics also point to the immense cost and risk of the transition itself. Replacing complex, enterprise-level security infrastructure is not like swapping out an app. It's a years-long process fraught with danger. During the transition, systems are uniquely vulnerable. A botched migration could open temporary gaps that sophisticated state actors, exactly the threat this aims to stop, could exploit. Furthermore, critics question whether domestic Chinese firms can immediately match the sophistication and proven track record of global leaders like Palo Alto Networks, potentially leaving systems less secure, not more. The broader warning from this side is about splinternet, the fragmentation of the global internet into rival, incompatible blocks. They argue this tech decoupling mirrors geopolitical divides, making global commerce and communication harder. For ordinary Chinese firms, it means higher costs, less choice, and potential compatibility issues with international partners. Critics see this as a political maneuver that sacrifices technical efficacy and economic efficiency for ideological purity, creating the illusion of security while potentially introducing new homegrown vulnerabilities. So who's right? Let's look at the evidence. Stepping back from the rhetoric, what does the data and expert analysis suggest? First, the market numbers. According to research firm IDC, China's cybersecurity software market was worth over $15 billion in 2023. US and Israeli firms hold a significant, though not dominant, share in the enterprise and state sector segments targeted by this order. The immediate financial impact on those foreign firms is substantial, but the bigger story is the forced acceleration of a local industry. Chinese firms like Kihu 360 and Venestec are poised for massive state-directed growth. Expert analysis from neutral tech policy institutes, like the Center for Strategic and International Studies, notes a clear global trend. Many nations, from Russia to India to the EU, are pushing for digital sovereignty and local data storage rules. China's move is the most sweeping, but it's part of a pattern. The evidence suggests we are moving toward a bifurcated tech world, a US-aligned sphere and a China-aligned sphere, each with its own standards, software, and hardware stacks. On the security question, the evidence is mixed. Studies on import substitution in tech show it often leads to a short-term dip in quality and innovation due to reduced competition, but can foster long-term local capability. The critical unknown is the pace of Chinese innovation. Can domestic firms close the gap before new vulnerabilities emerge? International comparisons are sobering. Russia's attempt to create a sovereign internet has largely led to more state control without clear evidence of enhanced security against external threats. The data suggests that while the motivation is understandable, the execution is a high-stakes gamble with unclear security returns. The reality is more complex than either side admits. Beijing's directive is undeniably a strategic move for technological autarky, driven by genuine security fears and nationalist industrial policy. It's not an irrational move in a world where the US has weaponized tech supply chains. However, the critics' warnings about fragmentation and transitional risk are equally valid and serious. What most people miss is the secondary effect. This accelerates a global choosing of sides for multinational corporations. Companies operating in China will now need to maintain two separate cybersecurity architectures, one for their Chinese operations and one for the rest of the world. This increases costs and complexity for everyone. The uncomfortable truth is that this move likely does enhance the Chinese state's control and surveillance capabilities over its own enterprises, as domestic firms are more susceptible to state influence than foreign ones. Whether that equals security against external threats is the billion-dollar question. It may simply change the nature of the vulnerability. For ordinary people, this has ripple effects far beyond Beijing's boardrooms. If you work for a foreign company in China, your IT systems are about to undergo a messy, disruptive change. If you're a Chinese consumer, the apps and services you use may become increasingly walled off from the global internet. For the global citizen, it means a less connected world. Prices may rise as companies pass on the cost of maintaining dual systems. Collaboration on global challenges like tracking cybercriminal gangs becomes harder. What to watch next? First, the rollout speed. A rushed order will confirm critics' fears. Second, the response from US and Israeli firms. Will they fight or adapt? Third, and most importantly, watch for copycat actions. Will other nations in China's orbit, or even the EU, follow suit with their own localization rules? This could be the first domino in a series that permanently fractures the digital world we've known for 30 years. So, is Beijing's software purge a masterstroke of self-reliance or a misstep that will weaken its own digital walls? The debate is defining the future of the internet. Now I want to hear from you. Are you team digital sovereignty or team global internet? Drop a comment below. What do you think? Drop a 1 if you see this as necessary defense, 2 if you see it as dangerous fragmentation. Share this with someone who needs to see both sides of the story. Subscribe to Kenya News Update today for more breaking news.